How was your last session? Yeah, good. Excellent. Absolutely great. I like that. That'll work too. This is far more informal this morning than what you saw previously. As a matter of fact, this morning we didn't get through my slides because we had great discussion. So please, if you have anything to add or any questions or comments, or you disagree with me, as someone did, that's fine. Keep it to yourself. But otherwise, no, not anything, really. Just kind of wave at me, because otherwise I'm going to fly through this, because I have way too much material for the amount of time that we have. So, this is generations of the multi-generational workplace. I like to say it's not fake news, right? It's real. And how we use it and leverage it to our advantage can make a huge difference in business today. I really, as we talk about generations, we can skip that. A definition of a generation. I don't know if I ever looked at one. I found this online, but I like it. A body of individuals born in approximately the same time period who generally share similar behaviors and attitudes. When we look at generations, I just got these numbers, and I was trying to find a comparison. The newest I could find was 2017. But the bottom line, it said that whereas in 2007, our workplace in the United States, where 43% were boomers, 38% were Gen X, and 17% were millennials, look how that switched, right? Now we've got millennials are 36%, Gen X 33%, and boomers getting smaller and smaller. And so I think the point there too is, who have you got in your organization? If you are a boomer, if you're a boomer owner of the company or a principal, who are we grooming to kind of take our places? And it's a key right now. It's a challenge in the workplace. So here are the numbers, and again, as I look at them, they change depending on what study you look at or what statistics you look at. But it's pretty profound that only 2% are traditionals. So traditionals, they're born before 1946. Typically, well, I'll tell you more, 31% of baby boomers born 46 to 64, Gen X born 65 to 82, and Gen Y born after 1983. And let's add a fifth one. That's Gen Z. Gen Z is coming into the workplace. I mean, they're 20, 21 years old. 1999 they were born or now, and very different generation. We're going to talk a little bit about them too. But just as a side, in doing the book Anticipate, knowing what customers need before they did, I have a co-author. So my co-author and I did an informal study of generations and how they affect customer experience. So what we found was one of these four generations is under far more pressure in the workplace than the other three. Who is it? Why traditionals, Claire?
Technology.
Yeah. So automatically, a lot of people go to traditionals. And I disagree. As a matter of fact, traditionals were the second least group under pressure. Because traditionals are basically saying, I'll learn what I need to learn, but I've got an exit plan. And that's from work, not from life, by the way. Or both. Yeah, no, 2 more years, I'll learn what I need to learn, but in 2 years, I'm out of here. So they don't feel the pressure that this other group does. So at least 3 others. Who else?
X.
Yeah, who do you think?
I think it's Gen Y because
Why?
The
No, why?
millennials get catered to.
Why? Okay, yes?
The millennials get catered to.
Yes.
Because, they have short attention spans, and we have to praise
Wait, Gen Y are millennials, right?
No, Gen X, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Let's go back, because
so, yeah.
how many of you said Gen X? I was ignoring you for a reason, but okay. Gen X, go ahead.
Yeah, like we're the proverbial middle kid.
Yes.
And the boomers, they dictate everything, and the millennials now, we got to cater to them. And so in Gen X, we're like, okay, well.
The millennials just like shiver going, oh my God, I can't believe she said that. You're partially right.
I'll never hire another
Yeah, exactly. Angie, no, you're absolutely right. I call Gen X, and it is Gen X, under far more pressure than the other 3 generations. Because if you think about it, they're the sandwich generation at work. Not sandwich generation in the sense that baby boomers are, caring for parents and caring for children. But at work, Gen X is, they're working with their parents, not literally in most cases, but the people of their parents' age. And then they've got these millennials coming in after them with this tool belt of technology. So I've got to keep up with that. Then they're looking and saying, baby boomers, us baby boomers, unlike before us, baby boomers, we either can't afford to retire or we don't want to. And so they're saying, where can I go in the organization? So there's the pressure there. And it manifests itself in so many ways. I shared with the other group that I used to have a Gen Y and a Gen X who worked with me, and it was just when Twitter came out. And so I remember going to my Gen X and saying, teach me how to Twitter. I thought it was a verb, okay? So I said, teach me how to Twitter. And all of a sudden, my Gen Y speaks up and she said, Jeff, just tell me what you want to say and I'll do it for you. That's kind of the mentality. Where my Gen X, I call them the guilt generation. Because they're working with mom and dad, not literally, but they feel a little guilty, so they're always trying to help. So Jeff, on Tuesday I have some time. Why don't we sit down and I'll teach you how to tweet. It's just the little nuances there. I also shared the fact that I'll never forget my Gen Y was on the phone one day, and we had a very tiny office. She was on the phone one day with her mom, and I heard her say, Mom, he, meaning me, he makes me use the phone instead of emailing. And then she goes, and it's got a cord, right? So yeah, that was very foreign to her. So the point that I'm trying to make with all of this as we go through this very quickly this morning is, well, you'll hear it in a video, actually. Let me leave it. The bottom line is this. Every day for the next 19 years, nearly 10,000 Americans will reach the retirement age of 65. This is huge, right? If they're going to retire, who have we got to fill their spot? And you know, that's one of the reasons that we have to understand generations. You're going to hear me say a lot this morning. It's about working with people in a way in which they need to be worked with, and that means your internal and external customer. Working with them in a way, understanding, I like to say, understanding your customer so well that you work with them in a way in which they need to be worked with. And this is only one aspect of it, generations. You know, we had a little discussion this morning that personality and behavioral style, another one. Right? Anybody ever done any work in behavioral styles, Myers-Briggs or DISC or colors, or right? So if I know your personality, your behavior style, I used to think, because I've done DISC, if you're familiar with DISC, for 27 years. And for me, if I knew your behavioral style, that was the be-all and end-all. I could work with you in a way in which you needed to be worked with. And then I went, quick story, I was sitting in a hotel room about 8 years ago, and I was about to turn the television on because I travel all the time, and I thought, I don't want to watch television. So I went over to my computer, and I literally enrolled in my master's degree. Now, I also teach communication skills. This is not something you want to do without communicating to your spouse first, right? Honey, I just made a $45,000 investment, and I may never use it. So, but went back to school, and I got my master's in education, and I focused on this. And what I found was, these are all obstacles to communication, if you think about it. That's the way I put it under the umbrella. First, I got to know your generation. Then I got to think about your behavioral style. How about the fact that then there were gender differences in communication as well? Made famous from a 1995 book. What was the book? Men are from Mars, Women are from Venus. What was the message of the book?
They can't communicate with each other because their brains.
Well, they can, but they're very different, right? Men speak Martian, women speak Venetian. Oh, we're a chapter out of the book. My wife will come home and she'll say, this house is a mess. What's she really saying? This house is a mess. But guys, what do we hear?
You left it.
You left that mess. You get down there on your hands and knees, you slob, you fear. It's this guilt thing, right? But it was the secondary message of the book about listening that really drove it home. But in doing my thesis for my master's, I started to look at this, and it bothered me that it was generations. And what I found was, now all the research says it's male brain, female brain, which is it's very cool to think about. It basically says it's not about gender. Every one of us have male brain, female brain. And how we react to a situation either comes from our male brain or female brain. John Gray said that men are always about fixing things. Fix it and move on. Fix it and move on. Women are wired more emotionally. So now, though, if you think about a male brain, female brain, a woman says, fix it. All that is her male brain speaking. A man says, let's sit down and talk about it. That's his female brain. So it's no longer gender. But these are all obstacles to communication in the workplace. And we're going to focus just on the one, and that is obviously, genders. I don't know how I got off on that tangent. I'm sorry, I tend to do that. So, and I have two people here. We're in the first session going, where are you going with this? Okay, anyway, I want to share a video with you, and I think it'll explain everything.
Millennial, Gen X, Boomer, Traditionalist.
It's like my kid, if they forget the phone, it's like they're gonna die.
My phone doesn't leave like a 6-inch radius from me.
They're like, oh, these kids with their tech gadgets, you know, and all we have is newspapers and abacus.
He just showed us the different generations because he couldn't remember.
That is definitely my generation. I like that.
I prefer a quick, right to the point answer, no back and forth email. I have a hard time adapting to sending emails. So sometimes my bosses get a little frustrated, but I'm a millennial. I check social media probably like 50 or 60 times a day.
I mean, that's pretty serious, but yes, I would.
The ones that are in Gen X and then the baby boomers, they're a little bit more, don't want to be in the spotlight, where millennials like to be praised and they like that constant feedback.
I don't know about like not reading it entirely, but like definitely like skimming.
Skimming it, agree.
You're saying I wasted 4 hours?
Multiple people, multiple generations looking at the same problem.
That's 4 different answers that may answer the same question, but in a different style.
Now you have so many new things to learn, like let's move on to the next thing.
It gave me a lot of thought into the different generations that work here. I mean, we need each other.
And that's the key for this morning, that we need each other. I think that we're not going to be judgmental. We're not going to be, any opinions. It really is about the fact that we need all 4 generations in the workplace. If we want, I like to say that the more people we get involved, the better the answer to any challenge that we have. And now, the more generations we get involved, I think we just get different perspectives. So this morning is really about understanding those generations and how to work with each other. So let's start with the traditionalists, the veterans. Born before 1946, only 2% of the marketplace. Love the movie. Was it The Intern? Anybody see it? Yeah, it was a great movie. I loved it. But only somebody my age would appreciate it, I guess. I don't know. No, you're not my age. If you liked it, absolutely. No, exactly. So what were the traditionals' influences, right? Some things that are very foreign to some of the people in this room. But the Great Depression, World War II, the GI Bill, Korean War, Cold War. So they had very different influences than the other generations. Their education, for most traditionalists, higher education was just implausible. Ask them, they'll tell you, either I was the first person to go to college in my family, or I didn't go to college. I have a 10th grade education, and I just made it on my own. Though they value hard work, their focus was on scraping by financially. So they came through the 1920s, 1930s, depending on when their parents were born, and the Depression. Their values, they value things like courtesy, security, discipline, dependability, authority, tradition, logic, and their work ethic. They are hard workers, but it's got to be just steady hard work. Work before pleasure, that was their motto. It's like when work before home. Got to get my work done before I go home. The idea, how foreign it was, I remember my mom saying, your dad's working late tonight, right? I don't think that happens that much anymore. And it's just the different generations. And how many nights that he wasn't home for dinner, where I guarantee you we have a lot of Gen X's, where are you? All right, millennials, where are you? Yeah, you 2 generations, this is a foreign concept, really. Working late. If I have to, I will, but I'd rather be home with my family. And that wasn't the mentality of baby boomers and traditionals. They work as a duty that necessitates life. So I work to live, right? Communication style, they appreciate that personal touch. Nowadays, that's not literal, okay? Just so you know, in the workplace, we can get into trouble. But value, courtesy, respect, and they like written or in person, not electronic communication. And this is the frustration with Gen X and Gen Y, who are dealing with these people. It's like, I don't want to pick up the phone. I just sent you a text. Can't you just answer me and do it quickly? So, and by the way, you'll be able to defend yourselves in a minute, I promise. The approach to feedback, traditionalists find feedback unnecessary. They seek to do their job, not to win approval or feedback, which is very different than a lot of the other generations, right, who need that feedback in different ways. As a matter of fact, the other 3 generations need feedback, but in 3 different ways, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Work versus personal life. Work and personal life are strictly separate. To our traditionals. Work comes first and then my personal life. And they're willing to sacrifice their personal life for work. And again, this is a foreign concept in today's workplace. This is how they were brought up. Relationship with technology, we can guess. They're not comfortable with technology. They'll use it if you show them how. But it makes them seem resistant to change, when in fact, none of the generations are resistant to change. I think it's the speed at which they're being asked to change. And that's the difference in generations, right? I think that both baby boomers and traditionals are saying, wow, we are changing way too quickly, right? You know, I'm still trying to figure out Facebook when you guys are onto Instagram, that kind of thing. So you've got to be patient if you are of the younger generations with the older generation. Baby boomers, where are you? Yay. All right. Wow, majority in this group. All right. So baby boomers, let me ask you, all right, so what frustrates you about the younger generations? Let's be honest. Sorry?
Short attention.
Short attention span. So why is that frustrating? Look at her giving a dirty look. Wow.
Because she doesn't have a very good attention.
Right.
I'm younger than my years.
What's really funny is I saw you in the keynote doing 10 other things, so it's okay. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Why do you say that? What do you mean? Why is that frustrating?
They're so accustomed to instant gratification and hopping from one thing to another, to another, to another, that sticking with one task for a length of time is difficult.
All right. Where are you, Gen X and Gen Ys? Can you defend yourselves?
I mean, I'm here, but I can't defend myself.
Okay, that's it. Because it's true, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. I get that. But they don't see it as a problem, whereas we do, right? And that's the challenge. Because we were so focused on one task at a time, and we didn't have all these other interruptions during our day. We didn't have a cell phone and a computer. We did our job, or we answered the phone. I mean, that was it. That was the job. So again, it's about appreciating the differences versus and preferences. And once we can do that, we can work with each other in a way in which we need to be worked with. But let's look at our baby boomers and a little bit about them. Their influences: rock and roll, television, right? That wasn't an influence to our traditionals. Rise of the suburbs, JFK, Watergate, Vietnam War, rise of the suburbs. And again, I wanted to go back and just say all of these, and then just to make it a little more complicated, depend on which end of the spectrum you were born in as well. People born at this end of the spectrum are more Vietnam, Beatles, hippies. People born on this end of the spectrum are more Watergate, you know, more political stuff. So my brother and I used an example this morning. My brother and I he's at this end, I'm at that end, basically. And I'm a Canadian. That's no surprise, but I'm a Canadian. He went to school at University of Akron, Ohio, and he used to come home and visit, and he'd bring a friend. This was during Vietnam, just to give you some perspective. And for some reason, my brother would go back to school, and the friend would stay. And stay forever, by the way. So I never knew how that worked, but that was the difference. I wasn't really affected by that. I was too young. So again, we don't have enough time, but within each one of these generations, it differs as well, depending on which end of the spectrum you find yourself. All right, so what about education? Education suddenly became more important for our baby boomers. Most baby boomers completed high school, and over a fourth of baby boomers have a bachelor's degree or higher. And I was sharing this morning that I just read that a quarter of baby boomers now have gone back to school to get another degree later in their life. That's huge, a quarter of baby boomers. So I wasn't unusual, I guess, signing up for my master's degree. I thought I was, but I guess a lot of people are doing it. They value adventure, vision. They actually value change. So baby boomers like change. You need to give them the why of change, why we're changing, and the vision. Whereas a lot of the other generations don't need that. They're very open to suggestions, and they're motivated by success. Their work ethic is very efficient. The work is a way to grow and be gratified. They like recognition. And I will stop for a minute because recognition is a key word for all of the generations, but they're very different kinds of recognition. With baby boomers, I like to use the word appreciation versus recognition. So they are motivated by appreciation. So I'm a baby boomer. I'm motivated by recognition, which is under the umbrella of appreciation. There's two very different kinds of people. For me, it's recognition, very public. Give me an award at the awards banquet. Tell me how great I am. Put my name in the newsletter and tell everybody else how great I am. That's recognition. Whereas praise is more like, Rebecca, thank you so much for being here at VI Logics. You're doing an amazing job. See, that's not recognition as much as it is praise. Now, I don't know Rebecca, and maybe she's not like this, but if she is a certain style, she doesn't need it to be made public, but she still needs somebody to thank her once in a while. Well, baby boomers thrive on appreciation, one way or the other. Again, you've got to figure out who it is you're working with and work with them in a way in which they need to be worked with. They need appreciation, either recognition or praise. Make sense? Okay, good. You've got that look in your face like, what the heck is he talking about? Okay, communication style. Just to give you an idea, they like informal, in-person communication, value familiarity and rapport. They can work with, we can work with electric communication, just teach us. That's all, or tell us what we need to learn. And by the way, another challenge is don't tell us to go on YouTube and watch a video to learn how it's done, right? I need you to sit with me and show me. And that again, is that baby boomer mentality. Jill's laughing. Jill works with me, and she knows that we work remotely, so she knows that how much trouble I have. Approach to feedback. Baby boomers don't value constant feedback. They prefer formal, documented feedback at intervals. So tell me that I'm going to get a review every quarter, every year, whatever it is. Whereas as we get into Gen X and Gen Y, they want feedback constantly, all the time. And so it's very different. And remember, traditionals didn't even want feedback. They just do my job. I know I'm good at, fire me if I'm not good at it. That was it, black and white. They also prefer to be recognized with promotions, and again, some kind of incentive, promotions, or material gain. Work versus personal life, competitive, driven about work. They'll work long hours, put personal life on hold if we have to, and we're willing, more than any other generation, give me a call at home. You know, if there's a problem tonight, just call me at home. Again, a foreign concept to some other generations. Like, leave me alone, I'm done with work today. That's it. A relationship with technology is huge. We grew up largely without current technologies. And I used the example before of television. I think it really points out the difference in generations. So our traditionalists, depending on their age, they'll remember, believe it or not, going from radio to television, or at least going from black and white television to color, or, this is probably foreign to some of you, the fact that we only had 6 stations and we actually turned them manually, right? Yeah, if we had 6. If you were in the country, you didn't, right? And so, wait, let me just ask you a question, television-wise. What did traditionalists, baby boomers? Well, let me talk about baby boomers. Baby boomers grew up with television. Television was huge in our lives. It was a form of entertainment. And baby boomers in the room, on Sunday night, what did we watch? Walt Disney. And what came on after if you got to stay up? Anybody remember? Ed Sullivan. Now, some of you are going, how the heck do they know this, right? Guess what? We only had 6 stations, or 3 in some cases, so we didn't have much choice. But the key is, who did we watch with? Our family. Sat the family around the television and watched television. Technology, Gen X, where are you? Yeah, you watch television, but all of a sudden it became very educational TV. Blue's Clues, Sesame Street. Why? Why?
Because they thought it was going to rot your brain.
Yeah, television was going to rot your brain. I hadn't thought of that, but that's probably a reason. But there's a real reason too that, yeah. Became a babysitter? Yeah, why? Why did we need a babysitter? Because for the first time ever, this generation had both parents working. Now, some baby boomers, depending on what end of the spectrum, had both parents working, but Gen X almost completely. And so it became the babysitter. And who did we watch with? Usually ourselves or our siblings, right? Now we get to Gen Y. They watch TV on anything, anywhere, anytime, by themselves. And so it's just those little nuances with technology that you have to appreciate, not judge, just appreciate. And so our exposure, meaning baby boomer, our exposure to technology was not huge. As a matter of fact, I remember the first Atari games. Anybody else remember those? Yeah. What was that boring? Pong, right? That was like the first one ever, Pong. Now, could you imagine our kids looking at that? Never mind, let's go on. Expectations, opportunities to contribute and make an impact. Baby boomers are not that concerned with social responsibility. So the impact is at work. It's on our customer. It's on our daily work lives. It's not necessarily global because we just never thought that way. And whereas as we get into Gen X, you're going to find it's far more global, the impact that they want to make. We need work to be fulfilling, chance to shine, and recognition. There it is again. Gen X. My favorite Gen X. Anyway, Gen X, you're in the room, 65 to 82. Education. Gen X, before Gen Y, were the best educated generation ever. Because the baby boomers their parents were almost forcing or at least emphasizing education. Got to go to school, got to get an education. Don't want you to work in the factory that I've worked in for the last 30 or 40 years. I do a lot of work in the manufacturing sector, and I have to tell you, it's a huge challenge right now to recruit young people into manufacturing because One, they don't want to be there from 9 to 5, even though they may not be in front of a desk. And two, they're just not going to school to get the skills that are needed right now. I think there's a huge opportunity there for these new generations as well, but that's my opinion. They're better educated than the other two generations before them. However, many view college as a means to an end, and the end being just a solid career path. So whatever I studied, that's what I went into school to, that's what I went into work to do. Their values. Gen X, freedom, flexibility, and I think this is a key with Gen X and Gen Y, but flexibility. For the first time ever, Gen X was focused on family versus work. Got to get home, I want to be with my family for dinner. I'll come in early tomorrow, but I want to be home tonight to put the kids to bed. This was a foreign thing to traditionals and baby boomers, right? You got to get your work done before you go home. Coming home late, right, was not an experience for X and Y. Frankness, efficiency, access, their work ethic. They value results. Work is a task to be finished. That's the way they look at it. Work is practical necessity so that I can live. So now I'm working to live, not living to work. And there's the difference. Preferred leadership style, they like a democratic style, informal, straightforward approach, a quick access to you. And the communication style, no frills communication that cuts to the chase. They appreciate frequent communication and can work with and may prefer electronic communication. But the difference, back to our little video we showed, is that the difference between them and Y is that Y is saying they don't like that back and forth. Just tell me what has to get done. Tell me what we need to do, whatever that is. Versus these guys who don't mind back and forth, but it needs to be electronic. Questions or comments? You haven't interrupted me, so I'm worried. Anything? I hate reading slides too, but I'm going to keep doing it. So approaching to feedback, Gen X wants a lot of feedback. They like to check in on their progress and ask for feedback, and they'll ask on their own volition. They don't like to be told you'll have a quarterly review. When I ask you, tell me how I'm doing. Again, different than Gen Ys, as you'll hear. Gen Ys need constant feedback, and they won't ask you for it. Relationship with technology, they began encountering current technologies as young adults, so they're used to this. Adapted to and are comfortable with the use of technology. So let's move on to Ys. Ys, let me ask you a question. And Ys, I'm going to start with you in the group. And how many do we have? Ys? Oh, there are a bunch of you. Okay. So I'm going to generalize for a second, and I know this is your perception sometimes, that we, meaning baby boomers and traditionals, look at your generation as lazy. First question is, before you get defensive, why? Why do you think we do that? Why do we look at your generation as lazy? Because there's a reason.
You think we have it easier or more, I guess, easier than the rest of you?
Why? But why do I think you have it easier?
I don't know. I consider myself an elder millennial because
Okay.
I have a lot of values that my parents have.
Right.
They're baby boomers, so
Right.
I have a hard time sometimes.
Yeah, and I do have to tell you, it goes back to we can't stereotype, right? This is only one part of what we're talking about understanding our customer, internal and external. And so again, depending on where you are in the spectrum, you could be a completely different than somebody else in that spectrum. So I hate talking about spectrum, that doesn't sound right. But yes, Jeff.
I'm trying to think here, and I'm thinking, because I'm a millennial, so I'm not defensive, but I think that not particularly my parents, but a lot of our elders are actually doing a lot for us. So we look lazy because they're doing it for us. They're
Right.
helping us with school. They're, giving us our jobs. They're not making us work. They're giving us money to go get food and whatnot. Like, they're not actually encouraging us as much as previous years.
I love that. Yeah.
To do things that we should be doing. Do
I-
laundry.
Yeah.
Anything, big and small.
I hadn't thought about that, but it absolutely is. That's a great reason, right? It's the hovering parents as well. So we kind of view you as you've gotten everything, so we just keep giving it to you. I don't know. But you think that's the same at work?
Yeah, I guess at times.
Okay.
I'm sure that maybe other people would cater to us
Okay.
and do things as opposed to encouraging us to do it on our own.
Okay. Laura?
I think it has to do with the amount of resources we have at our fingertips now. Like,
That's what I think.
oh, I don't know this answer, I'll look it up on Google, as opposed to maybe like having to go to the library and look it up on shelves, things like that.
You know what a library is? No, I'm sorry. I'm just shocked. That's all I'm saying. Got it.
The company that I work for is a tech company.
Yes.
And we have a couple of engineers who
where a new piece of equipment was ordered. None of the engineers had worked with it. They Googled it.
Yeah.
And went and installed it.
Really?
Yes.
YouTube.
For a company.
YouTube.
And it's a multi-million-dollar piece of technology.
Wow. Right.
Neither of them had ever worked with it.
That's
They
very cool.
literally Googled it and went and put it in
Jeez.
this company.
Maya.
I think that also Gen Y, we were so encouraged growing up to be involved in so many different things. Like we're signed up for soccer and everything.
Right.
And so we always have involvement in a lot of different things, and so we're not purely focused on what we're doing at
Yeah.
work. Whether we're on social media or we're planning for what's after work with the organization that we're a part of, or whatever
Right.
it is.
Yeah, and it is about, I totally agree with Laura and you. It's about focus. You know, as baby boomers, we don't see you focused on the job. And so we think that you're playing on your phone, you're playing every time you're on, and that's just not true, right? So we have to appreciate that the technology has really affected the perception of you as millennials. Yeah.
So too, I think like there's a big blur of like work-life balance, whereas like, you know, before, you know, you come home from work, like you're done with work.
Right.
Whereas like with our cell phones, oh, you're constantly, I know for me, I'm constantly checking my emails, answering phone calls, even like when you're on vacation, you're not necessarily on vacation, you're still working.
Right, right. Plus you sleep with your phone. That's like a foreign thing to me. It's amazing to me. But yeah, you know, it's always there. So did you have a comment? Question?
In listening to what everybody is saying, it seems to me that there's really not a real problem between the generations, other than the fact that the differences that are today are stemming from differences in the educational process and the lack of communication between.
Okay. Yeah, it comes down to communication again. Sure. Thank you for that. And I want you to know that I don't think it's just in defense of baby boomers and traditionals. I don't think we see you really as lazy, just unfocused. And that's where we have a disconnect. That's all. And so you kind of have to prove yourself in the workplace more than any other generation that you can get the work done.
I think the reason why you see them as unfocused is because your definition of focus is different.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I was brought up, focus is, you know, sit at my desk for 8 hours and get my job done, right? And
your job was to make a physical widget.
Correct, yeah.
The job of that generation is to think very differently about how the process makes the widget.
Absolutely.
It's very different.
Yeah, even in, you know, my background's in sales, and so in marketing. And so it was, you had to make X amount of calls to get X amount of results to get, and that's completely foreign now, right? And the mentality right now is, as long as I get my work done and you're happy and we get the results, who cares where or when I do it? And that's okay, but we, the older generations, have to accept that and understand that. So thank you for that. Yeah, so let's look at Gen Y, the lazy generation. Millennials, I'm kidding, just kidding. They're the most educated generation we've ever had. They spend much more time on homework if they were in school than previous generations. They value flexibility. There's the key. You know, we have to be flexible with this generation. We have to let them tell us how they're going to work best, what kind of environment they need. And it's frustrating for us because, you know, I've got an office. I need you to be here, you know, at least once every day to do something, whatever that is, but some flexibility so I can see what you're doing, you know. And it's not about micromanaging on our part. It's just that's the way it's always been. Remember this morning? That's the way we've always done it. Creativity. They're incredibly creative because they have all these resources at their disposal. Education, it has to have some kind of meaning. So with Gen Y, they're much more concerned about social causes and how do I contribute to the world, basically. You know, what contribution am I making not just at work, but to the world? And where I'm seeing this change with organizations is organizations are now, because of Gen Y, because of the pressure of Gen Y, they're starting to become, as organizations, far more socially responsible as well. In their community, globally, whatever that means. And if you're going to attract a younger generation, what they're going to talk about Gen Z in a minute, if you want to attract the new generation that's coming in, this is imperative. They're not going to work for you if there's not a big picture of some kind. If it's just making widgets, they're not going to do it. Yeah?
I was just listening to NPR yesterday, and they were talking about the importance of social values in Silicon Valley. And
right.
Kind of the way Silicon Valley goes, that's the way everybody else eventually goes. And they were talking to folks who, they would not work for a company that had different, what they interpret as moral values. So
Yeah.
they identified as conservative. They would not work for a company like Salesforce that, is pulling out of states that are, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then those that are extremely liberal would not ever work for a company that the owner or folks identified with conservative causes like a Chick-fil-A.
Right.
You should never go there for any amount of money.
Wow.
And that was fascinating.
Yeah. So how does a Chick-fil-A or a conservative company, how do they recruit? Who are they recruiting?
Well, they were talking about there are now companies that are.
I don't mean to pick on Chick-fil-A, just as
No,
an.
there are social media groups and there are companies that are focused on headhunters who focus on helping you find the company
The
that,
fit.
that has the same social values that you do.
Got it.
And vice versa with the companies looking for people
Yeah.
with those same social
And then baby boomers in the room are going, really? Like, just come in for an interview. That's all. I'll figure it out. So, yeah. No, thank you for that. And I think that's a key as we talk. And I see heads nodding. But Gen Y, do you agree? It's social causes as well. What's the big picture? Yeah.
But is that a good thing?
Yeah. Is it good or bad? I don't know.
I don't think it's good because I think it's healthy to have the variety of views within any organization. To polarize yourself with only people who think like I do or only people who think like you do.
Right.
Isn't healthy for society or the company.
Okay. Yeah.
My view opposing that is that if I'm going to put my time and effort into earning money for a company, I don't want to earn money to someone who's going to support something that I'm against.
Yeah.
So I won't.
Interesting. Interesting, because the way you even put that is kind of foreign to me as a baby boomer, right? If I'm going to make money for the company versus if I'm going to make money for myself, right? And that's the mentality. Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. Cool. Okay, let's go on. So their work ethic, there's where I was going with it. Their work ethic, they value challenging, variable, meaningful work. They value change more than anybody else. No sense of permanency. Not sure if I said that in this group already. But, they're coming into, did I say this already? They're coming into the workplace, our millennials, and again, not just being judgmental, but they've been brought up, coming into the workplace saying, I'll try this for 2 or 3 years. If it doesn't work, I'll go be a brain surgeon. Right? And whose fault is that, baby boomer parents? Right? This is my daughter, by the way, up here, and she'll tell you, they grew up saying, honey, you can do anything you want, and they believe that. So it's a challenge, right? Yeah.
But I also think that boomers in corporate America are responsible for the reason that millennials don't want to go into manufacturing. They've seen corporations just
Absolutely.
one day go, oh, we're going to some other country because we can get cheaper labor.
Yeah.
And so they kind of grew up with that and seeing parents lose jobs and living through
Absolutely.
the economic downturns of what it means to lose.
Right.
You better be marketable and looking down the road 2 and 3 years to move
Yeah.
on because you might not even have a job.
Absolutely. It was a paranoia, and the baby boomers, I can ask in the room, did any of your parents want you to do the same thing they did for a living? No, not generally, right? I don't want you to work in a steel mill. I did that for 30 years, and there's no way I want you to do that. And so it was that mentality. You're right. Go to college, get a degree, and then, depending on the generation. So you're absolutely right. Great. All right. Preferred leadership are wise. Respect authority. They value a relationship with the immediate boss. They're informal, engaging, a fun approach. Make work fun for me. Why does it have to be boring? Communication style. They like informal communication, value patience, clarification, prefer electronic. Well, that's no surprise. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have a client who now has meetings, but they're 15-minute stand-up meetings. That's it. Her whole requirement, she's a Gen X, but her whole thing is 15 minutes stand-up. We're not going to sit down. We're not going to belabor this. We got an agenda. We're going to get through it. 15 minutes, we're out of here. So it's time as well. I think that, no studies, but I think that Gen Y values their time more than any other generation. Don't waste my time. Hear it all the time. So their approach to feedback, millennials like to be given feedback for something immediately after they do it. They're not waiting for a review. They don't want to know quarterly. Tell me if I did it right. Tell me if I did it wrong or what needs to change. They're a generation known for wanting instant gratification and praise. And the relationship with technology is well, duh, right? They get it. They're comfortable with technology. They excel at its use. They prefer to have this is key, up-to-date or cutting-edge technology in the workplace. And many of us are using old systems and everything else. They're very frustrated because they don't want to learn it, one, and two, they know there's a better way. So why not let them figure that out? Tell me a better way and what we need to do. Let's go. I just want to touch on Gen Z, known to the rest of the world as Gen Z, by the way, only in the United States. I'm a Canadian, so I grew up with Z. But Gen Z. So Gen Z, also known by a bunch of other names. They haven't named them yet, so right now it's a placeholder. By the way, Gen X's, I'm sorry to tell you, but you had a bad PR agent. Really, you did. Like, if you think about it, they put a placeholder, Gen X. We'll get back to you, when we decide to name you. And then you're so small a group that they just moved on and forgot about you. So this will not, I guarantee you, they will not be called Gen Z. Anybody heard any other names for them that you can share?
Generation I.
Yeah, I.
Like the iPhone generation.
That's true.
Everything generation.
Right.
iPods,
Right. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Any others? There are some others out there, I think, but they're coming. They're coming. Right now they're early 20s, the older end of them, and so they are coming into the workplace. And don't confuse them with our Ys. They're different. Our Zs, I'll explain.
Generation Z. The kids have an attention span of 8 seconds. Is it possible to communicate anything in 8 seconds? Let's give it a try.
So who are we? Well, we're the kids born up to 1995, born into a post-9/11 world. When the war on terror started, we were starting school.
We're younger than Google, first generation to have grown up with social media. We consume in 8-second bites. To us, 30 seconds is an eternity.
I don't think I would have been able to live without Google and the internet. We live more through devices than we do actual interaction.
A nightmare? Not if you know them.
Gen Y grew up in a time of plenty, but the uncertainty of the noughties changed all of that.
Gen Z is a new species. We're not called Tony or Shelley or Kevin. We're called Logan and Romeo and Malala.
We don't consume on 2 screens, we use 5. No text, highly visual. To everyone else, the way we function seems like so random, but to us, it's as natural as breathing.
We don't have a lot of faith in experts. We're not interested in the wisdom of the grey hairs. We just want to get it off Google or from our peers.
Some say we're fickle, but we do have our good points. We're highly connected, and we're not just tech savvy, it's in our genes, or should we say, our code.
We're collaborative, and we're more mature and more resourceful than Gen Y. At 18, Beth Rickles shared her first book online, and she landed a 3-book deal with Random House.
If our idea of a career doesn't exist, we'll just create it in our bedrooms. 15-year-old Maya van Wagenden bucked the old order, landing a film deal with DreamWorks after self-publishing her school memoirs.
It's a DIY culture. We're pretty entrepreneurial. 18-year-old Nick Delosio is our poster boy. He created the news app Songly at 15 and just sold it to Yahoo for $30 million.
We witnessed our parents struggle in a crumbling job market, so we plan to make our skills pay off as soon as possible. At the ripe old age of 17, Lord won 2 Grammys, and now she's been hired to score the next Hunger Games.
If you think we sound shallow, don't be fooled. We want to make a real difference to the world. Teen activists like Taliban shooting victim Malala Yousafzai are reaching out to millions.
So just when you thought you'd got your head around Gen Y, Gen Z comes along and changes everything. Every 8 seconds. Take any longer, they turn into Generation.
This is a scary thought. And for some of you are saying, I can't wait to retire, right? Because, so what makes them different? How are we going to have to work with them? What do you think they need? Since there's none in the room.
Visual training.
Visual training, absolutely. All visual. All online, by the way, too. Don't want to sit in a classroom and learn. Which is, by the way, I have to share with you, doing what I do for a living is a very scary thought to me. How am I going to get to these people?
You're probably going to need a button in order to sign your name on anything.
Right. Something that, technology-wise, sure.
We're going to need a lot of coffee.
Yeah, you're going to need a lot of coffee. We are going to need a lot of coffee, sure. Yeah, this group, it just, so you know, you're going to find with this group, I'm not going to go through this, but one of the things I've read about Gen Z, and I find it very fascinating how they differ from Gen Y, because in my mind, a year ago, before I started looking into this, I thought they were basically the same thing, but they're very different. They will be more entrepreneurial than any other generation before them. And you heard them say it's because their parents grew up in typically Gen X, maybe even baby boomer, but Gen X. And they grew up in a time when jobs were, either scarce or changing all the time. And so because of that, as a generation, they're a little paranoid. So I'm going to just create my own job. which is how do we recruit them then if we need them to work for us?
We create a YouTube video because that's all they do is watch YouTube.
Is it 8 seconds? Yeah? Yeah, exactly. We create a YouTube video for them.
I mean, and they create their own and they share with each other, and that's how they learn how to continue doing things.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
they're watching each other play games, and then they're, creating this whole following, and that's how they make money.
Yeah. In the training world, we've learned that we have to gamify everything, right? We put it online and gamify it. Make it a game, then you'll get their attention. Yeah, it's going to be a real challenge in the workplace, I think. And how do we prevent them from just starting a business? I think part of it is we have to make them entrepreneurs within our business. How you do that in your own business, I can't tell you, but I really believe if we need to bring them in, give them not a task, but an entire, here's a project. I see them more as project oriented. This is your business, you run it, and tell me, I'll be your mentor. Yeah.
They give me hope for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't, for the most part, they don't see gender, they don't see race. And I'm just speaking from my own son, like it doesn't even occur to them, those things that we of these previous generations had to segment people. They don't see it.
Right, yeah.
I think what's going to happen is when it gets to that point, everybody's going to forget everything from the past, not be concerned about learning from all the other generations. There's so many people now that are against corporations. They want to do their own thing, and it's going to end up in a social experiment that fails.
Why do you think it'll fail?
Everybody wants to do their own thing, where
Right.
should it go?
Right.
They don't have the necessary skills or work ethic to succeed.
Right.
They don't play well with others.
Yeah, they don't play well with others, and I think that they're going to need those mentors, us and Gen X as well. They're going to need those mentors, or they'll never succeed on their own. I agree.
They won't accept us.
Yeah, no, exactly. But they reject any kind of advice. Sure, it's a conundrum.
Failure is an opportunity for them just to change gears and go a different direction.
Right.
Rather than work through it, find a solution, and come out better on the other end.
Right.
If they hit a difficult time, and I have kids that are growing up into this, and I see their older classmates and stuff, they just change direction.
Yeah.
Oh, no, this is hard.
Yeah.
And the internet
Move on.
and the online culture makes that so easy to do.
Yeah.
I think it allows them, though, to collaborate more than other generations ever did, because they can kind of appreciate the uniqueness of the individual. So, instead of having everything under one roof, they know to reach out, and it's so easy to do now.
Right.
You can go get that expertise somewhere else if you don't have it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's how they feel. I just have to watch a YouTube video. I can learn to be a brain surgeon, right? Yeah, and so again, we sit here and we have this discussion. We can guess, what to do with this next generation. Can you imagine that? I'll use myself as an example. My parents talking about, Gen X coming into the workplace and how terrible it was going to be. I think we just have to appreciate the differences and preferences. If we understand our customers' preferences, we can work with them in a way in which they need to be worked with. So let me ask you this. Did you learn anything in my session? Tell me one thing. One thing that you might be able to take away and use. I speak for a living.
Openness to the differences and not seeing them as a negative.
Thank you. And if that's all you learned, that would be wonderful. I think it's great. I was shared this morning that I had dinner with friends of mine last night, a bunch of guys, and a guy was saying he just got a job, and he's been working on his own for years. But he applied for a job that seemed perfect for him, and he said, I'm 61 years old. There's no way they're going to hire me. And during the interview, he brought it up, because it's not legal otherwise, and said, I'm surprised that I even got an interview at 61. And they said, are you kidding? Look around. We have no baby boomers, a technology company, and we need your perspective. And I love that, because it's not just about the fact that he's 61 and got a job. It's just that the company appreciated the fact that everybody brings something different to the table.
I think if we assume based on what we read and hear from the media, rather than having one-on-one conversations with people, regardless of the size of the organization, we really miss out, because there are some generalized assumptions about all of the generations that are not true for all of us.
Absolutely.
So if you don't sit down with somebody and find out from them, you know, what motivates you in your job, what incentives do you want, how do you want to be disciplined, how do you want to be rewarded,
Yeah.
and have those conversations with people regardless of their age, you know, you're going to fall into a really bad trap of that.
I agree. And if we're surprised, then we haven't asked the right questions when they came in. That's all. All right, we're out of time. Thank you so much, guys. My privilege to be with you. Thank you.